Hello and welcome everyone to the first question and answer session of the Trust LAT PD. Unfortunately, we can't bring this to you live and I apologise for that. Technology wasn't on our side. So I've got Steve here with me and some questions that I had from the video that hopefully you will find useful. So you should have watched the PD video, and Steve and Maggie Efford worked as a team to tell us about the good work they've been doing with regards to the writing project at Stationers Crown Woods. So I have got a list of questions and I'm sure Steve will give us his normal level of detail and enthusiasm as he responds. So firstly, Steve, thank you so much for your time and thank you to Maggie. I know she's not necessarily with us today, but I know you recorded that at a very busy start of term. So we're really, really grateful for you for opening your doors and letting everyone see the good practice at Crown Woods. So with that in mind, I'll stop talking and I'll hand over to you. So obviously your background is as an English teacher, the head of English at Crown Woods for a number of years. And so I guess the first question I would ask is, what impact has this writing project had across the curriculum? Why can it be relevant to other subjects?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think that in terms of English, there's no denying that it really does focus on their ability to write and be really, really coherent in the way that they produce their responses. But I do think it also has a place in other subjects too. Some of the inspiration behind the HELMET acronym actually came from when I was in school and used to do history, and we used to do something called a pestle analysis. So I don't know, an example might be, what were the causes of World War I, for example? And you might look at the political elements or the economic causes, or it might be social, technological, whatever it might be. And then what you start to do is consider an argument from lots of different perspectives. And that was something we really, really wanted to get out of our pupils when they're doing a piece of transactional writing. So using HELMETs is the same idea. It's different that they're not writing an essay maybe in English for that purpose. They're trying to write something to maybe persuade somebody about an argument, but they're still looking at an argument and they still need to develop different ideas from different perspectives. So I think that those skills that they've gained, as long as we make those connections explicit, they could potentially apply to a history essay, for example, or maybe a geography question where they're looking at geopolitical issues, for example. So I think that there are definitely ways in which that can be complementing what goes on in other subjects and not just in English. Equally, I think just improving a pupil's ability to articulate themselves helps with oracy in the classroom, in any subject. It enables pupils to write in a way that means they can get across their argument and their points really, really clearly. And I think that ability for people to articulate themselves is helpful in any subject. Lots of subjects also have marks for technical accuracy in their GCSEs as well. And I think that the work we're doing around sentence structure as part of the writing project means that pupils' accuracy is also being developed. So I think there are lots of little things there that tie into making sure that the pupil is a much better communicator, if you like.
Great, thanks, Steve. You talked in your original bit on the video, you talked about embedding the writing project. And I know you've got a large English department there. So I guess my question would be, how did you as the head of department at the time ensure a consistent approach across all of your teachers so that you knew that it was being teaching to the standard you required?
Yeah, definitely. You alluded to the difficulties of having such a big team and making sure everybody is teaching to the same standards, and every single pupil essentially gets the same experience and therefore is equipped to be able to use this in everything that they're doing. In terms of just using CPD effectively as a starting point, we felt that once we developed this project and these ideas, we really need to make sure that all staff were trained and well versed. So we set aside plenty of time to make sure that every member of staff, essentially, that we sort of taught the writing project to them, if you like, and that they knew exactly what it was that we would expect, so that they could then go forward and articulate that when teaching the pupils. We would be delivering lots of model answers. We spent some time in our CPD sessions working together to write some model answers and then sharing that best practice. We've then done a lot of joint planning together with lessons in all year groups that focus on writing. In our schemes of work, the writing project is referenced really, really clearly. And so we're constantly building on that. And then when we're doing our learning walks and our quality assurance processes, our book looks, we're always going and looking at, are teachers using HELMET? Are pupils and applying that effectively? And then going back and having discussions with teachers if we're not seeing the fruits of our labour, if you like. And what we really want to see is the evidence that pupils can use these structures and these strategies effectively in their writing. That's something we've definitely seen. So all that investment in CPD and supporting staff and that development has been extremely critical in ensuring that all teachers are on the same page and delivering the same standard and quality of lesson.
Okay, great. So how have the students responded? They talked a little bit in the video about what they saw as the benefits. Can you sum up for us what you think that their feedback would be?
Yeah, so I think for them, it's essentially a writing scaffold at the start. And I think particularly for year 7, I've alluded to the No More Marking project in the video that we did. And our year 7s, in their baseline writing tasks that they started off in September with, their writing just had no structure. And sometimes I think even though pupils might not necessarily realise it, by looking at, say, helmets, each paragraph considering a different thing, one looking at the health benefits, one looking at the economic benefits, one looking at, the social benefits of bringing a community together. What they're doing is they are planning their work, they are structuring their work into clear paragraphs, ensuring that they are moving from one idea into another idea in a really clear and logical way. And I think that in doing that, they have really improved the structure of their writing. And so when it came to the second piece of writing at the end of year 7, you could clearly see that structure and that planning and that thought process that children are going through before they then put pen to paper. So I think forcing them to plan has been something that they would say, I now think about what I'm going to write rather than just start writing and hope for the best. And then they've got a variety of ideas. Equally, I think that some of them might say they sound smarter in the way that they put their ideas across, because we've done that explicit teaching of key vocabulary, some of it being tier 3 vocabulary that's quite domain specific. So talking about, I don't know, health, for example, the word pandemic a couple of years ago wasn't necessarily in our everyday vocabulary. But of course, we're using terms like that, an epidemic, etc., and making sure that pupils know how they could potentially use those in that style of writing. Talking about, say, key political figures or from an economic perspective, like just the ability to start their paragraphs like that, they would definitely tell you that they feel far more confident and it makes them sound more intelligent and like they know what they're talking about. And I think that that's something they've gathered over their time with this project. I definitely think it's about confidence.
Yeah, I agree. And you talk about vocabulary there quite specifically. How are you tracking that improvement to vocabulary, Steve, and how have you noticed that changing over the year?
So a lot of that, again, with the No More Marking projects, it's a holistic view of all of the different aspects of writing, and that obviously includes using ambitious vocabulary. We definitely see it in their oracy, in their lessons, and their ability to articulate their ideas in the classroom. And we're also looking at their reading ages as well. And as they're gaining more words in their vocabulary, not only are they using them in their writing, they're also understanding them when they see it in their reading as well. And we've also seen the benefits in their analytical writing, because they're able to then use different words and phrases to explain how maybe characters feel or how a reader might respond to a certain event in a story that they're reading. And so we're definitely seeing that in all those different areas as well.
And you mentioned there the writing project, and I know we've talked about it before previously and worked on it together, but there'll be people that hopefully are going to watch this eventually that won't know anything about the writing project. So can you just give us an overview, because I think that's useful to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the project, we identified that there were massive gaps. Looking at, say, not just nationally, I think there was an issue with writing. Lots of the GCSE examiners reports sort of talk about writing as an issue. And of course, it's worth 50% of our GCSE English language marks. So it's really, really critical that we get writing skills right. So we set aside some time to go away and just think about what it is that we can do to support our pupils to be better writers. And we want them to be assured, confident, and come across in an intelligent manner. So in doing that, we came up with several different frameworks. So one of them is the HELMET acronym that I alluded to, which provides them with those different perspectives that they could consider an argument from. We've also done some work around set piece openings and closings for speeches and for letters and for articles, to make sure, for example, that pupils can effectively open and introduce their key ideas. So we have one which is based on, say, like the ideas of ethos, pathos, and logos, thinking about, okay, who am I as a character and why do I have credibility? So I'd introduce who I am in my introduction. I would then move on to talk from considering pathos. How am I going to make an emotional connection with the reader or the listener if it's a speech? And then also the logos. What are the logical arguments and tangible ideas that I'm going to present to you throughout my speech or my letter or my article that is going to convince you? So planning out different introductions and then matching them with set conclusions as well. And some of them use rhetorical devices like anaphora, for example, to really ensure that they are having a really effective closing to their speech. So once you have a clear opening, that we've given them the framework and support to do that, then you've got the helmets paragraphs in the middle to have a range of ideas. And then at the end, when you have one of their set piece conclusions, what they're doing is having a really well-structured piece of writing that ticks all those different boxes in the mark scheme. So it's about supporting them to do that. We've also then got the expert sentences. We're looking at using Alan Peate's sentence types. So we've got a few of those that we're using. We want to broaden that and use more. We're looking at using ethos, pathos, and logos even more within the structure of the writing itself. And that's something in particular you saw in the lesson. And as well as the vocabulary lists as well. And there's plenty more that we want to do, but we're taking it step by step, building on those successes, taking stock of where we've got up to, and then looking and identifying what it is we then need to work on next to build the strengths in that writing. So it's certainly not the finished article at the moment, but that's a lot of the, that's a lot of the work that we've been doing so far, and a sense of where it is we're heading over the next few months and years.
Great. In the video, Maggie shares a model of what she's expecting, and it kind of carries on from what you've just been speaking about. How have you, as a head of department, supported your team to ensure that modelling is really a feature of pretty much every single lesson, as I've seen when I've observed you all?
Yeah, so we've really worked on our pedagogy across the whole academy actually here. We do a lot of I do, we do, you do. So making sure that in every lesson we have that embedded process of you provide that model answer, because we think it's absolutely critical that we give pupils that understanding of what we expect as examiners, as teachers. What does a good one look like? Then the we do, where we sort of again provide that support to get ideas from the class and take your ideas on board and then model that live as well. And then, of course, over to them to do that deliberate pupil practice. In terms of making sure they're quality, we plan them in the schemes of work. We work together, we share ideas. Once we write one, we'll send it to a colleague and ask for some feedback. When we see that a pupil's written a good one, we share that with the team, and then we're using that as a model in the future. Sometimes writing models can be the thing that maybe takes the most time in your planning process. But I think it's so critical to get it right, because unless you're modelling effectively, pupils are not going to achieve what you want them to achieve. Because you need to show them exactly what it is that they're attaining and looking for, aspiring to achieve. So that for me is critical. We've been doing a lot of work on sharing that best practice and working together as a team. And then again, in that quality assurance process, sending each other those models and then giving feedback.
Thank you. So I'm going to end with probably a little bit more of a tough or perhaps a more difficult question. So if I were being cynical or controversial, I might say that actually, Helmet, you're just giving them the answers, and actually you're doing all the work, and, you're giving them these models, and actually it's all coming from you and your team and what are the children doing? Go on, shout me down. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I totally understand that fear, and I appreciate the apprehension. But I think, I don't know, when you start to ride a bike, you need stabilizers, right? And then you can take those stabilizers off, and then you can, off you go into the wide world and explore. And I think that for us, the writing projects, that it's those stabilizers. It's making sure that pupils are given the tools to do these things effectively. Because what you start to see, and the longer we've had this writing project embedded, is we're starting to see some of our year 11 pupils who've been doing it for two years now. It's really embedded. They're starting to then explore and experiment with doing different things, and they're changing those structures because they need them and that understanding of how to write effectively. Once they've mastered that, they can then start to play with it and experiment to do something that might have a slightly different purpose or a different effect. And so, in the final assessments for our year 11s, in lots of their pieces of work, we were really seeing them using those ideas. And also just saying, have you considered that argument from a health perspective or thought about mental health or physical health or the economic impact? That's not giving them the ideas, it's giving them a framework from which that they can consider the world around them or the different argument that they're looking at that point in time. So I definitely see it as a support. I see it as a framework. As they get older, more practice in using the writing project, we do start to remove those scaffolds, as you do with any scaffold that you use, as any good teacher does in the classroom, as pupils become more confident. But they need to master the basics before they can then move on and develop further. And are they all Guardian journalists at the end of it? Perhaps not, but you never know. Maybe we'll get somebody there in the future.
Perfect. I stand corrected. Listen, Steve, if I was watching this and I'd watched you and Maggie as a double act in terms of the video, I would want to find out more. And I know in the video there's a kind of pan to that sheet, but I'm going to ask for all those teachers that are thinking, God, this is amazing, I want to get involved in that. Would you be willing to share some of your resources if people would want them?
Absolutely, yeah, of course. And people can adapt them as they need. And we're always happy for people to come in and see what we're doing as well, or just have a chat, or Google Meet, whatever it might be, just to bounce some ideas around. And we're always happy to help.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Maggie. I know she's not there at the moment, but if you can pass on my thanks. If you are watching this, obviously, again, apologies that it wasn't a live session. There is a survey link, so this is something new we're doing as the Trust. It's something to try and give you a window into other people's classrooms. So while I accept that the technology didn't work this time, when you write your comments, it would be really helpful if you can tell us whether you think this is something that you'd like to see more of going forward, and if you found it useful. We'd really appreciate that feedback so that we can continue to improve the PD and we can continue to involve excellent practitioners like Maggie and Steve and the other people that have contributed, so that we actually are sharing best practice across the Trust. Thanks again, Steve. Take care.
Thank you.